Okay, so where we left off, we were labeling the parts of the neuron. So there's this whole big part, that's the dendrite, and it receives the signal. And then in here is the cell body, or the nucleus. And then all the rest of it is the axon, and it sends the message. Okay. So what makes nervous tissue special is that its cells are excitable, and that happens because of the cell body actively moving in sodium ions. So it has something called a sodium-potassium pump, and what happens is it adds in all these sodium ions into the cell body. So now what we've set up is an electrical gradient. It's a lot like a concentration gradient, except just with ions. So here we have a high concentration of positive ions. Over here we have very low. So once the cell body gets up to a certain point of positive ions, then this little gate type thing opens, and all the sodium ions rush this way really fast because the electrical gradient's so high. Okay. That rushing of the sodium ions is called the action potential, and it moves down the axon. No, that's not important. Okay. Okay. Alright, so once we get, if we draw two neurons next to each other, like this, if we have all the sodium ions being added in here, the electrical potential, action potential moving that way, then there's actually a physical gap right here of space called a synapse. And the message still has to get from this axon over to this dendrite. So if we just zoom in on this right here, we're going to have something that is normally drawn like this. Okay, so that would mean this is the axon ending, and this is the next dendrite. It doesn't have to be a dendrite. It can also be a muscle, an organ, the brain. Okay. Alright, so the action potential is moving this way down the axon, and what the axon does is it releases these little chemicals called neurotransmitters. And on the dendrite are these little receptors that receive the neurotransmitters. Once the neurotransmitter moves across the synapse and connects here to the receptor, then that triggers this dendrite to start pumping in its sodium ions, and then it'll have its own action potential from there. Okay. Alright, so that's